15 celebrities who have aged horribly, that unrecognizable, then and now. 2025. What happens when the relentless, unforgiving mirror of Hollywood completely erases the iconic faces we once worshipped? We are heavily conditioned to believe that global superstardom guarantees eternal beauty and absolute, untouchable perfection. But behind the blinding flashes of the paparazzi, a terrifying, deeply tragic reality is silently unfolding. Today, we are violently pulling back the velvet curtain to expose the most jaw-dropping, entirely unrecognizable physical transformations in modern entertainment history. From breathtaking leading ladies whose famous features were decimated by desperate, botched surgeries, to untouchable heartthrobs utterly ravaged by time and invisible tragedies. You will absolutely not believe the agonizing secrets hiding behind their altered reflections. Before we uncover these heavily guarded Hollywood tragedies, smash that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and welcome back to American Icon Stories. Madonna, 67 age now. When you trace the absolute zenith of pop culture and continuous artistic reinvention, the name Madonna instantly commands the room. For over 4 decades, the Queen of Pop effortlessly dictated global trends, constantly shedding her skin to introduce groundbreaking eras of music, fashion, and fierce female empowerment. She was the ultimate chameleon, holding the entire world captive with every single aesthetic shift. However, the 67-year-old music icon has recently found herself at the absolute epicenter of a deeply intense, highly polarizing global debate regarding her drastically altered physical appearance. The profound shockwave truly hit critical mass during her highly televised appearance at the Grammy Awards. The internet completely exploded as audiences were met with an incredibly jarring, unexpectedly transformed visage. Fans and relentless media outlets immediately pointed to what appeared to be heavy, aggressive cosmetic interventions, intense facial fillers, and an unyielding crusade to artificially freeze the unforgiving hands of time. The visionary artist who once flawlessly defined global beauty standards was suddenly and ruthlessly labeled as entirely unrecognizable. This sparked a morbid public fascination with her heavily augmented features, presenting a stark contrast to the familiar face that dominated the golden age of music television. Yet behind the staggering headlines and the vicious tabloid frenzy, a profoundly complex narrative is unfolding. Instead of retreating into the shadows, Madonna fiercely fired back at the blinding glare of the spotlight. She powerfully condemned the toxic, suffocating double standards of ageism and misogyny that aggressively target aging women in the entertainment industry. She absolutely refuses to apologize for her physical choices or quietly conform to an outdated blueprint of how a woman in her late 60s should exist. Her striking physical metamorphosis serves as a staggering testament to the crushing weight of Hollywood beauty standards, proving that even the most fearless pop royalty must navigate a grueling, highly public battlefield against the relentless mirror of time. John Travolta, 72 age now. If you rewind the cinematic clock to the blistering, adrenaline-fueled height of the 1970s and 90s, John Travolta was the undisputed, electrifying king of the silver screen. From conquering the dance floor in Saturday Night Fever to his iconic, gritty resurrection in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, he possessed an effortless, swaggering magnetism. With his piercing blue eyes, famous dimpled chin, and signature head of hair, he defined an entire generation of Hollywood heartthrobs. However, as the decades passed and the unforgiving high-definition cameras continued to roll, the 72-year-old actor's physical appearance underwent a highly scrutinized, deeply unnatural evolution that left international audiences completely stunned. The pristine illusion of his eternal leading man youthfulness began to violently fracture when the public noticed startling, drastic alterations. For years, relentless paparazzi lenses captured an incredibly taut, unnaturally smooth complexion and a highly debated, shifting hairline that sparked endless rumors of aggressive cosmetic interventions and heavy hair transplants. The rugged, expressive face that once flawlessly delivered some of cinema's most memorable lines was suddenly replaced by a frozen, heavily augmented facade. Fans were left in absolute disbelief, struggling to reconcile the legendary, dynamic actor of their youth with the remarkably rigid, almost wax-like figure parading across modern red carpets. Yet the true, deeply compelling climax of his visual narrative is his recent, highly celebrated pivot toward authenticity. After years of chasing an impossible illusion of youth, Travolta shocked the globe by finally shedding the infamous hairpieces, fiercely embracing a completely bald, dignified aesthetic. While the visible remnants of past cosmetic procedures remain undeniable, his ultimate decision to strip away the most heavily criticized artificial layer of his persona serves as a magnificent, powerful reminder. John Travolta stands today as a brilliant testament to the crushing, often invisible pressures that male superstars face in a youth-obsessed industry, proving that true Hollywood royalty is ultimately found in self-acceptance rather than surgical perfection. Simon Cowell, 66, age now. When you examine the absolute, undisputed titans of modern reality television, Simon Cowell is the monumental architect who completely reshaped the global music industry. As the fiercely critical, unyielding mastermind behind massive cultural phenomenons like American Idol and The X Factor, he commanded the screen with a natural, trademark scowl and a famously blunt, unapologetic charm. He was the ultimate, highly feared television judge, projecting an aura of absolute authority from behind his iconic desk. However, the 66-year-old media mogul eventually fell victim to the terrifying, hypercritical pressures of the Hollywood spotlight, plunging into a deeply alarming, highly visible cycle of extreme cosmetic tweaking that would utterly erase his familiar features. The spectacular illusion of his grounded, no-nonsense persona violently collapsed when he stepped onto the red carpet, sporting a profoundly jarring, completely unrecognizable visage. The international media erupted in an unprecedented firestorm of shock and confusion. Cowell's formerly expressive, character-filled face had been entirely replaced by a heavily swollen, dramatically tightened mask, characterized by unnaturally drooping eyes and a blindingly stark set of veneers. Coupled with a massive, highly publicized weight loss, the brutal tabloid culture ruthlessly dissected his drastically altered appearance. The internet completely exploded, with deeply concerned fans openly questioning what had happened to the formidable television titan they once invited into their living rooms every single week. Instead of maintaining a wall of Hollywood denial, the profoundly complex reality of his transformation culminated in a fiercely honest, deeply vulnerable confession. Cowell bravely admitted to completely losing control over his cosmetic interventions, revealing that his extreme reliance on injectables had gone so far that it actually terrified his own young son. He has since vowed to drastically pull back, dissolving the heavy fillers to reclaim his natural identity. Simon Cowell stands today as a staggering, deeply fascinating cautionary tale. His breathtaking physical metamorphosis spectacularly proves that even the most powerful, highly critical voices in the entertainment industry can quietly fall prey to the intoxicating, destructive trap of artificial perfection. Meg Ryan, 64, age now. When you recall the absolute, undisputed golden era of 1990s romantic comedies, Meg Ryan was the universally adored, luminous queen of the silver screen. With her effortlessly chic blonde bob, infectious crinkly-eyed smile, and undeniable girl-next-door charm, she completely dominated the global box office. Through timeless, multi-million-dollar cinematic masterpieces like When Harry Met Sally and Sleepless in Seattle, she established a seemingly invincible Hollywood empire, captivating audiences as the ultimate, quintessential romantic lead. However, as the unforgiving narrative of time progressed, the 64-year-old superstar found herself trapped in a deeply tragic, heavily scrutinized visual metamorphosis that left her fiercely loyal fanbase in absolute, paralyzing shock. The pristine illusion of her natural, highly relatable beauty was violently shattered when she stepped back onto the highly televised red carpets after a deliberate hiatus. The international media completely erupted as the soft, expressive features that once naturally lit up high-definition frames appeared drastically, almost jarringly, altered. Paparazzi flashes aggressively highlighted an unnaturally taut complexion and heavily augmented, swollen lips, instantly sparking a massive wildfire of cosmetic surgery rumors. Critics viciously labeled her appearance as the devastating result of botched, desperate attempts to surgically freeze her youthful prime. The very industry that once heavily profited from her organic charm suddenly turned its hypercritical, deeply unforgiving focus on her perceived physical flaws. Yet the truly breathtaking, deeply compelling climax of her story is her fierce, unapologetic resilience. Instead of crumbling under the crushing weight of global scrutiny and tabloid cruelty, Ryan has gracefully reclaimed her own narrative. She firmly dismisses the toxic, superficial noise of the media, boldly declaring her profound appreciation for the wisdom that accompanies aging. Meg Ryan stands today as a magnificently strong, profoundly complex survivor of Hollywood's impossible standards, powerfully illustrating that true, enduring elegance is never defined by a flawlessly smooth surface, but by the unyielding confidence to simply live authentically. Axl Rose, 64, age now. If you rewind to the absolute blistering epicenter of late 1980s stadium rock, Axl Rose was the undisputed, untamed god of the global music scene. As the fiercely magnetic, hyper-energetic frontman of Guns N' Roses, he completely commanded massive, roaring arenas with his signature, piercing vocal range and a wildly unpredictable, explosive stage presence. He was the ultimate, untouchable symbol of dangerous, leather-clad rock and roll rebellion, captivating millions with his chiseled, bad boy aesthetic. Yet, the 64-year-old musical titan could not permanently outrun the crushing, relentless toll of time and an entire lifetime of severe, unapologetically chaotic excess, resulting in a profoundly startling physical evolution. When he eventually stepped back into the blinding glare of the modern spotlight, after years of relative seclusion, the fiercely loyal global rock community was met with an absolutely jarring, deeply unexpected visual reality. The lean, wildly energetic provocateur of the MTV generation had been entirely replaced by a profoundly weathered, heavily swollen figure. Relentless tabloid speculation aggressively pointed toward potential heavily botched cosmetic interventions and intense facial fillers as the desperate culprits behind his drastically altered, fatigued features. The incredibly sharp, iconic rock star visage that once defined an entire era of heavy metal was violently erased, leaving behind an almost entirely unrecognizable facade that sparked endless, highly scrutinized debates across the internet and social media. However, the truly breathtaking, profoundly fascinating climax of his turbulent journey is the magnificent, quiet resilience resting beneath the physical scars. Instead of retreating into permanent, bitter exile due to the harsh public judgment, he fiercely continues to take the stage, proving his legendary vocal prowess remains completely unbroken. Axl Rose stands today as a heavily battle-tested, deeply complex survivor of his own chaotic mythology. His staggering transformation spectacularly proves that while the brutal rock and roll lifestyle inevitably ravages the physical surface, true, monumental artistry and the undeniable human spirit can never be completely extinguished by the passage of time. Priscilla Presley, 80 age now. When you examine the unparalleled zenith of American music royalty, Priscilla Presley has always stood as the fiercely protective, mesmerizing matriarch of an iconic dynasty. As the impossibly glamorous bride of rock and roll's greatest king, she captured the global imagination with her timeless, porcelain beauty and towering signature hair. She successfully transitioned from the heavily guarded gates of Graceland into a highly lucrative acting career, dominating primetime television. However, the crushing, unrelenting pressure to remain eternally youthful in a notoriously unforgiving industry eventually drove the 80-year-old icon into a profoundly terrifying, catastrophic medical nightmare that would forever alter her famous features. The pristine illusion of her Hollywood trajectory was violently shattered when she fell victim to a highly deceptive, fraudulent cosmetic practitioner. In one of the most horrifying, heavily publicized medical scandals in modern entertainment, she was shockingly injected with cheap industrial-grade silicone, a toxic substance entirely unfit for human use. The immediate, agonizing physical fallout was disastrous. Her globally recognized, delicate features were severely damaged by painful lumps and terrifying facial paralysis, sparking a relentless wave of cruel tabloid speculation. She was forced to endure a grueling, deeply traumatic labyrinth of corrective surgeries, merely to repair the catastrophic damage inflicted upon her. Yet, the truly breathtaking climax of her incredibly complex narrative is her spectacular, unyielding resilience. Instead of hiding in the shadows of shame, Priscilla bravely stepped into the blinding spotlight to expose the agonizing truth. By fearlessly sharing her harrowing ordeal, she transformed her deeply personal physical trauma into a staggering, powerful cautionary tale. She stands today as a magnificently brave survivor, powerfully proving that the desperate, unregulated pursuit of artificial perfection can invite irreversible destruction, but absolute courage can gracefully rebuild a shattered legacy. Linda Evangelista, 60, age now. If you trace the definitive, untouchable pinnacle of high fashion in the 1990s, Linda Evangelista was the supreme, shape-shifting queen of the global runway. She possessed a fierce, chameleon-like beauty that commanded every major magazine cover and luxury campaign on the planet. She was the quintessential supermodel, a woman whose face was so fiercely valued that she famously wouldn't even wake up for less than an astronomical daily sum. However, the 60-year-old fashion titan's magnificent, multi-million-dollar empire was abruptly, violently derailed by a profoundly terrifying cosmetic nightmare that forced her into deep, agonizing isolation for nearly half a decade. The pristine illusion of her flawless, world-renowned silhouette was completely shattered following what was supposed to be a routine, non-invasive fat reduction procedure. Evangelista suffered a rare, incredibly devastating medical reaction known as paradoxical adipose hyperplasia. Instead of eliminating fat, the treatment caused her cells to multiply and harden into painful, unyielding masses across her body and face. The brutal, agonizing reality of this complication left her feeling brutally disfigured and entirely unrecognizable. The very industry that once worshipped her physical perfection completely disappeared, leaving her stripped of her livelihood, her confidence, and her fiercely independent identity. However, the most awe-inspiring chapter of her turbulent journey is her spectacular, incredibly brave return to the light. Refusing to be permanently silenced or hidden away by profound shame, she boldly stepped forward to expose her agonizing truth to the world, taking fierce legal action and completely reclaiming her stolen narrative. Linda Evangelista stands today as a magnificent, unbroken titan of the beauty industry. Her breathtaking reemergence serves as a powerful, chilling indictment of the cosmetic procedures sold to vulnerable women, spectacularly proving that true, enduring supermodel strength comes from unapologetic authenticity and the courage to shatter the silence. Mickey Rourke, 73, age now. If you trace the raw, electrifying evolution of Hollywood's ultimate bad boys, Mickey Rourke was once the undisputed, reigning champion of the silver screen. Bursting onto the scene with a brooding, impossibly handsome magnetism in 1980s classics, he possessed an untamed, effortlessly cool aura that completely mesmerized global audiences. He was the quintessential, untouchable heartthrob, commanding a massive, multi-million-dollar cinematic empire. However, the 73-year-old actor's glamorous trajectory took a profoundly violent, jaw-dropping detour when he abruptly abandoned the blinding studio lights to step into the brutal, blood-soaked reality of the professional boxing ring. The punishing, relentless, physical toll of the sport completely shattered his famous, highly bankable visage. Enduring severe facial trauma, including multiple broken noses and deeply fractured cheekbones, Rourke was forced into an agonizing labyrinth of reconstructive procedures. But the true, deeply tragic turning point occurred when he famously confessed to seeking out the absolute wrong surgeon to piece his shattered features back together. The catastrophic, highly visible results of these botched procedures left his fiercely loyal fan base in complete, paralyzing shock. His once sharply defined, iconic features melted into a heavily swollen, entirely unrecognizable mask, violently erasing the handsome face that originally built his Hollywood legacy. Yet the most breathtaking chapter of his chaotic, highly scrutinized life is his spectacular, undeniable, artistic resurrection. Instead of permanently hiding in the shadows of his botched surgeries, he fiercely channeled his immense, deeply personal pain and physical scars into profoundly raw, highly acclaimed cinematic performances. Mickey Rourke stands today as a magnificent, deeply complex survivor of his own destructive choices. He powerfully proves that while the brutal combination of the boxing ring and misguided surgical scalpels can completely destroy a Hollywood facade, absolute, undeniable artistic brilliance can never be permanently erased. Lil' Kim, 51, age now. When you examine the fearless, groundbreaking foundation of modern female hip-hop, Lil' Kim is the absolute, undisputed pioneer who aggressively shattered every glass ceiling in the music industry. Bursting out of Brooklyn in the 1990s, she completely revolutionized the genre with her unapologetic lyricism, wildly daring fashion, and a fiercely unique, naturally captivating beauty. She was the ultimate, untouchable rap royalty, commanding massive global respect and establishing a multi-million-dollar empire. However, behind the platinum plaques and the blinding flashes of the paparazzi, the 51-year-old rap icon was silently battling a profoundly terrifying, deeply agonizing crisis of self-image that would ultimately result in one of the most shocking physical transformations in pop culture history. The pristine illusion of her fierce, untouchable confidence was violently shattered as years of highly toxic industry pressures and deeply damaging personal relationships exacted a severe, uncontrollable psychological toll. In a desperate, heartbreaking attempt to conform to impossible beauty standards, she embarked on a staggering, highly publicized cosmetic journey. The international media completely erupted as she stepped onto red carpets displaying drastically altered features. Through extensive facial reconstructive surgeries and aggressive skin-altering procedures, the familiar, iconic face that once graced millions of album covers was violently erased. The brutal tabloid culture ruthlessly dissected her unrecognizable appearance, aggressively mocking her rather than acknowledging the profound, invisible pain driving her physical choices. Yet the true, deeply compelling climax of her narrative is her absolute, unyielding survival. Despite the crushing weight of global scrutiny and the devastating artificial pressures of the cosmetic surgeon's knife, she refuses to be permanently silenced or stripped of her legendary status. Lil' Kim stands today as a magnificently resilient, profoundly complex trailblazer. Her breathtaking metamorphosis serves as a monumental, chilling indictment of the toxic, impossible beauty standards forced upon women in the music industry, powerfully proving that her monumental musical legacy will always outshine the devastating scars of the spotlight. Kathleen Turner, 71, age now. If you trace the absolute, blistering zenith of 1980s cinema, Kathleen Turner was the undisputed, intoxicating force of nature who effortlessly commanded the global box office. Bursting onto the screen with a dangerously alluring mix of razor-sharp wit and undeniable sensuality in legendary hits like Body Heat and Romancing the Stone, she cemented herself as the ultimate, untouchable leading lady. Armed with her iconic, smoky voice and a fiercely confident presence, she possessed a multi-million-dollar allure that practically hypnotized international audiences. However, the 71-year-old superstar's magnificent Hollywood reign was abruptly, violently derailed by a profoundly agonizing, invisible medical catastrophe that would completely transform her globally celebrated visage. Right at the absolute pinnacle of her staggering success, Turner was blindsided by a crippling, deeply terrifying diagnosis of severe rheumatoid arthritis. The desperate life-or-death crusade to halt the excruciating joint deterioration required incredibly aggressive medical interventions. Pumping her body full of heavy, unforgiving steroids and intense chemotherapies, the life-saving medications exacted a catastrophic physical toll. The flawless, statuesque silhouette that once dominated magazine covers was violently replaced by severe, uncontrollable weight gain and profound facial swelling. Rather than offering empathy, the brutal, bloodthirsty tabloid machine immediately launched a vicious campaign, relentlessly publishing cruel, entirely fabricated rumors of severe alcoholism to explain away her shockingly altered, unrecognizable appearance. Yet the most breathtaking, deeply triumphant climax of her narrative is her spectacular refusal to be broken by Hollywood's suffocating vanity. Instead of embarking on a desperate, surgical crusade to artificially reconstruct her fading youth, she fiercely chose survival and authentic health over a fragile cosmetic illusion. Kathleen Turner stands today as a magnificent, battle-tested titan of the silver screen. Her staggering physical metamorphosis serves as a profoundly powerful, chilling indictment of an industry that punishes the sick, spectacularly proving that true, enduring cinematic royalty is forged in absolute resilience, not in a perfectly preserved, wrinkle-free facade.
Shelley Duvall die, age 75, in 2024.
When you examine the fiercely original, beautifully eccentric landscape of 20th century cinema, Shelley Duvall was an absolute, undisputed visionary. With her strikingly unique, doe-eyed features and an incredibly raw, magnetic authenticity, she effortlessly captivated legendary directors, delivering unforgettable, culture-defining performances in classics like Popeye. She was the ultimate, unconventional, cinematic darling, completely breaking the traditional mold of highly manufactured Hollywood glamour. However, her monumental legacy was forever altered by her deeply harrowing, iconic role in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. The crushing, suffocating psychological torment of that infamously brutal production, demanding months of relentless, hysterical terror, pushed her to the absolute edge, triggering severe physical hair loss and sparking a profoundly tragic, lifelong battle with her own mental health. The glittering illusion of her Hollywood trajectory violently collapsed when she abruptly fled the blinding, toxic glare of the industry, vanishing into a fiercely protected, reclusive existence in rural Texas. For decades, the beloved actress was entirely missing from the global stage, until a deeply controversial, utterly heartbreaking television broadcast in 2016 shattered the silence. The world watched in absolute paralyzing shock as an exploitative daytime interview revealed a profoundly altered, entirely unrecognizable woman. Her once vibrant, famously expressive face had been entirely weathered by the merciless passage of time and the agonizing, invisible weight of severe, untreated psychological struggles. The brutal reality of her condition left her fiercely loyal fans in a state of deep, collective mourning for the bright, brilliant star they once knew. Despite the agonizing, highly publicized tragedy of her final decades, the ultimate, breathtaking chapter of her story is the undeniable, immortal weight of her artistic contributions. Before her deeply sorrowful passing at the age of 75 in 2024, she bravely stepped back into the frame for one final independent role, proving her creative fire was never completely extinguished. Shelley Duvall stands today as a profoundly tragic, deeply beloved cinematic legend. Her staggering, heartbreaking transformation serves as a chilling, monumental warning about the terrifying, irreversible psychological cost of absolute artistic sacrifice. Amanda Bynes, 40, age now. When you trace the absolute, effervescent zenith of early 2000s teen comedy, Amanda Bynes was the universally adored, undisputed crown princess of youth television. Bursting onto the screen with an incredibly rare, lightning-in-a-bottle comedic timing in massive global hits like She's the Man and Easy A, she possessed an effortless, radiant charm that instantly captivated an entire generation. She was the quintessential, bright-eyed child star with a seemingly limitless, golden Hollywood future and a multi-million-dollar empire. However, the 40-year-old actress eventually fell victim to the crushing, suffocating pressures of unprecedented childhood fame, plunging into a deeply terrifying, highly publicized psychological abyss that would completely obliterate her recognizable persona. The pristine illusion of her wholesome, family-friendly empire violently shattered during a highly chaotic, deeply harrowing public breakdown. The entire world watched in absolute, paralyzing shock as her private, agonizing mental health battles manifested into severe legal issues, highly alarming behavior, and a deeply restrictive, multi-year conservatorship. When she eventually re-emerged from the blinding, toxic glare of the paparazzi to attempt a quiet return to civilian life, the fiercely loyal public was met with an absolutely jarring, entirely unrecognizable visual reality. Her once familiar girl-next-door features had been drastically altered by striking facial tattoos, unconventional piercings, and highly visible weight fluctuations that left the internet completely stunned. The brutal, unforgiving tabloid culture aggressively rushed to dissect her new appearance, but Bynes mounted a fiercely honest, deeply vulnerable defense. She bravely shattered the glossy Hollywood illusion, openly confessing to her fans that her physical transformation was the direct, agonizing result of severe clinical depression and her ongoing, grueling fight for mental stability. Amanda Bynes stands today as a profoundly complex, incredibly brave survivor of the ruthless child star machine. Her staggering, highly emotional metamorphosis serves as a monumental, chilling reminder that the terrifying, invisible battles of mental health frequently leave undeniable physical marks, powerfully proving the vital need for human empathy over superficial Hollywood judgment.
Wayne Newton, 84, age now. If you examine the absolute, blinding epicenter of live entertainment, Wayne Newton is the undisputed, legendary architect of the Las Vegas Strip. Famously crowned Mr. Las Vegas, he captivated global audiences for decades with his velvety, pitch-perfect vocals, striking, boyish good looks, and an incredibly magnetic, larger-than-life stage presence. He commanded the entertainment capital of the world, performing tens of thousands of sold-out shows and building a seemingly invincible, multi-million-dollar empire. However, as the decades advanced, the 84-year-old icon's desperate, unyielding crusade to permanently preserve his youthful marquee status led to a profoundly startling, highly scrutinized physical evolution that left international audiences completely, utterly speechless. The glittering illusion of his eternal prime was violently disrupted when he fell victim to the crushing, artificial pressures of a youth-obsessed industry. In a highly visible, desperate attempt to surgically freeze his signature features, he embarked on a grueling labyrinth of extreme cosmetic interventions. The fiercely loyal public watched in absolute, paralyzing shock as his once handsome, deeply expressive face was aggressively pulled and tightened into a completely unrecognizable, unnaturally rigid mask. Endless, heavy facelifts and relentless injectables effectively paralyzed the natural charm that originally built his legendary career. The brutal tabloid culture ruthlessly dissected his drastically altered appearance, viciously mocking the stiff, wax-like facade that had violently replaced the dynamic performer they once adored. Yet the truly breathtaking, deeply compelling climax of his unprecedented narrative is his absolute, unyielding dedication to his audience. Despite the crushing weight of global mockery and the undeniable, catastrophic visual results of his surgical pursuits, he fiercely refuses to permanently surrender his microphone or step out of the spotlight. Wayne Newton stands today as a magnificent, profoundly resilient titan of live performance. His staggering physical transformation serves as a monumental, chilling, cautionary tale about the terrifying cost of chasing eternal youth, spectacularly proving that while a surgeon's knife can completely destroy a classic facade, an undeniable, burning passion for the stage can never be extinguished. Laura Flynn Boyle, 56 age now. If you rewind the cinematic clock to the mesmerizing, atmospheric peak of early 1990s television, Laura Flynn Boyle was an undisputed, breathtaking vision. Bursting into the global consciousness as the strikingly beautiful, fiercely complex Donna Hayward in the legendary cult classic Twin Peaks, she possessed a completely natural, piercing allure that captivated international audiences. She effortlessly transitioned into a massive, multi-million-dollar primetime empire with The Practice, establishing herself as one of Hollywood's most sought-after, elite leading ladies. However, as the unforgiving, hypercritical spotlight intensified, the 56-year-old actress eventually fell victim to the terrifying, suffocating pressures of a youth-obsessed industry, leading to a profoundly startling, highly publicized physical metamorphosis. The pristine illusion of her classic porcelain beauty dramatically collapsed when she began stepping onto red carpets with a noticeably, drastically altered visage. The fiercely loyal public watched in absolute paralyzing shock as her once delicately defined features were aggressively replaced by heavily swollen, unnaturally augmented facial contours. Relentless paparazzi lenses captured a jarring, entirely unrecognizable reality, sparking a massive, vicious wildfire of cosmetic surgery speculation. The brutal tabloid culture ruthlessly dissected her changing appearance, pointing to extreme facial fillers and an agonizing, desperate crusade to surgically freeze the hands of time. The very industry that once worshipped her organic elegance abruptly turned its back, aggressively marginalizing her for the visible scars of her aesthetic pursuits. Yet the deeply compelling climax of her narrative is her absolute, unyielding refusal to be permanently destroyed by the ruthless Hollywood machine. Instead of surrendering to the crushing weight of global mockery, she fiercely stepped away from the toxic glare, choosing a fiercely protected, private existence. Laura Flynn Boyle stands today as a profoundly complex, incredibly resilient survivor of an industry that demands impossible perfection. Her staggering physical transformation serves as a chilling, monumental cautionary tale about the devastating, irreversible cost of chasing eternal youth in the blinding public eye. Jocelyn Wildenstein, 85, age now. When you examine the glittering, ultra-exclusive pinnacle of global high society, Jocelyn Wildenstein stands as a fiercely undeniable, unprecedented pop culture phenomenon. Armed with a staggering multi-billion-dollar fortune following one of the most highly publicized, astronomically expensive divorces in modern history, she completely dominated the international elite. She possessed infinite wealth and access to the absolute highest echelons of luxury. However, the 85-year-old socialite's limitless resources eventually fueled a profoundly terrifying, jaw-dropping surgical obsession that would permanently, drastically alter her human features, earning her the infamous, inescapable tabloid moniker of the Catwoman. The pristine illusion of her original, natural elegance was violently erased as she embarked on a relentless, decades-long labyrinth of extreme cosmetic interventions. Driven by an incredibly unique, highly controversial desire to artificially mimic the exotic, feline features of large jungle cats, she reportedly poured millions of dollars into the surgeon's chair. The international media erupted in absolute, paralyzing disbelief as she continuously re-emerged with heavily augmented, wildly stretched facial contours, dramatically elevated eyes, and unnaturally swollen lips. The sheer, unprecedented scale of her surgical alterations resulted in a completely unrecognizable, highly polarizing visage that shocked the entire globe. She became the ultimate, heavily scrutinized poster child for the catastrophic, irreversible dangers of unregulated plastic surgery,
and boundless wealth. However, the truly breathtaking, profoundly fascinating reality of her unprecedented journey is her magnificent, unbothered confidence. Unlike so many public figures who desperately hide their cosmetic regrets in the shadows, Wildenstein fiercely owns her spectacular transformation. She firmly dismisses the vicious, suffocating noise of the global media, absolutely refusing to apologize for her radical aesthetic choices. Jocelyn Wildenstein stands today as a staggering, deeply complex titan of self-invention. Her breathtaking, highly controversial metamorphosis spectacularly proves that when limitless financial power collides with an unapologetic, unconventional vision, the resulting image can completely shatter every single established boundary of human beauty. We have just witnessed the profoundly heartbreaking visual realities of massive cultural titans who completely lost their famous reflections. Their incredibly dramatic physical evolutions force us to aggressively confront the deeply toxic, hypocritical nature of fame and the extreme lengths stars go to for eternal youth. Now, I want to turn this intense, highly polarizing conversation over to you. Is the brutal, hypercritical entertainment machine ultimately to blame for pushing these vulnerable icons toward desperate, destructive surgeries? Or is the relentless public demand for absolute perfection the true monster in this narrative? Where exactly do we draw the line between celebrating natural aging and punishing artificial enhancement? Ignite a fierce, passionate debate in the comments section right now. Hit that like button, subscribe for more shocking truths, and thank you for watching American Icon Stories.